want you to put your arms down. I want you to put your shoulders back. And I want you to take a big breath in, but here's how I want you to do it. I want you to breathe in through your stomach, almost right here. Breathe in through your nose, like you're smelling your rose. And then I'm going to have you hold it for the count of 7. And then I'm going to have you exhale through your open mouth for the count of 8. You ready? In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. We're going to do it again. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when you're doing things in the midst of your caregiving and you're feeling like, you can use that breathing technique. It's actually in the book. All right, what ideas did you come up with? Yes? Call twice a day instead of 3 times a day. Now, also, because you're calling, who's in charge of the time? That's right. So that means that instead of taking a call and being interrupted, you hopefully are setting aside that time and saying, this is my time with my loved one. Good. What else?
I'm organizing our drivers for my parents. I don't have to be the one that takes
Perfect.
them.
Okay, so a boundary would be, what if they call and say, but I'd like you to take me.
That's what's happening.
So why don't you take me? I don't want to drive with her. I don't like her car.
And I said I can't do it. I just can't go there.
Okay?
And it works, but it's hard, and it's harder for me than it is for them. They got there. They navigated it.
That's the piece you have to remember in setting up the boundary. Did you just hear that? You have to remember that. It's harder for them, or for you, than it is for them. It's harder for you.
We have what's called Jewish guilt.
We have Lutheran guilt.
Anybody.
No. So the piece, the boundary that you have to put into place then is to remember that when they call and say, but I want you to take, remember, oh yeah, that's right, when you say that, you're going to be just fine. And so then, therefore, I'm okay. So instead of saying, I just can't, I'm a failure, I know I'm a rotten daughter, whatever you're telling yourself, I understand those messages, just say, you are so lucky because so-and-so is going to take you. Isn't that great? So-and-so is going to take you. My mother did not want anyone else to drive her but Dwight. Same bathing, driving. Until Mrs. Detlefson showed up in her pink Cadillac. Then she liked that. But then if someone else came, we were back to, I want the pink Cadillac. All right, what are some other boundaries? Yes? Yes? If
one thing that I used a lot was when I was doing caregiving, particularly for my mom, because she was living on the campus where I work, was I'd go swimming. And swimming was great because my head was underwater. Couldn't hear the phone ring. I was totally away, totally doing a separate thing.
Right.
And take a steam bath first. The world was after. I had an hour of rest.
Lovely. So you had that, you safeguarded that time for you. So that was your time. Good. Yes. Boundaries. It's putting up that, setting aside that time when you're going to actually say no. No. Okay? Now, when you say no, by the way, to someone, here's how many of us say no. There's how many of us say no. Oh, Kari, can you come over today and visit me? I'm so lonely. No, and I can't because I have got so much work to do and I haven't weeded yet and the dog needs me and I'm kind of actually I don't really feel good. I don't. I think I'm coming down with rheumatoid flu. All you have to do is say, I can't today. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you can say, I can't today. However, Tuesday, I would love to come and see you. What do you want to do next Tuesday? What can we plan for next Tuesday? Okay? Do you really care when someone gives you an excuse about why they can or cannot do things? No, neither does your loved one. Don't do it. Don't go there because, and besides, my excuses get worse and worse with my sister, and she knows that I'm trying to wheedle out of it. Or they can argue against it, and then it's terrible. It's terrible. Right. So I want you to really think about those boundaries. What are you doing to take care of yourself so that you can say no and feel okay about it? Get to that point of saying no. I love your example the most because the parents were fine getting there with the other person anyway. Right? So we'll pack the Jewish guilt up with the Norwegian Lutheran guilt. And we'll put them in a suitcase and we'll send it on a trip. Okay?
I have kind of an opposite situation, whereas my mom doesn't ask for anything and doesn't communicate much. And so you're always guessing. You know, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you want to go somewhere? And there's like, she never demands anything. She's, just not communicative. So it's hard to set a boundary because there's nothing to set one against.
Yes, there is. If you don't get an answer from her, you have to let it go. You have to set a boundary of how many questions you're going to ask her if she's non-communicative. Now, but I'm going to back up just a little bit. Is she non-communicative because she's got a disease? Okay, and what is the disease?
She has vascular dementia.
Okay, that's different then. So with vascular dementia too, they tend to get in a loop thinking. All right, so there I think you just still have to let go and you have to lessen the questions. Are you hungry? Would you like a banana or whatever her favorite food is? Or would you rather have a salad? And then pause. And if she doesn't answer, you have to move on. But so your boundaries are more of a not feeling like you have to continually figure out what she needs. That you can let go. That you'll help as much as you can. Does that make sense? Yes?
I just want to say to that, I worked for somebody, a gentleman who had vascular dementia for about a year and a half, and I found myself having to do pretty much that very tactic, but I always thought of it more as I'm offering suggestions, more than just questions, because the suggestions sort of meant that I'd be participating with him, where the questions were sort of left for him to
All on him.
So it's kind of a balance, but yeah, questions, simple questions.
We do that a lot, and just like two choices. More than that.
You know, another thing that we have issues with in our society is we sit down with someone. Who can I can pick on you. Yeah. We sit down with someone. We say, "How are you doing today? Are you okay? Did you sleep well? Was lunch good?" Yeah. It's like, good grief, let the person breathe. You know, we bombard them with questions, and really, we just need to say, "How was lunch?" and be quiet. Some of you might suffer from what I suffer from, and that is the disease of it's all about me. So sometimes I have to really, this is a lesson that I have had to learn. And that is when you communicate with someone, you want to do a communication style where you allow that person to tell their story rather than you relating everything they've talked about back to you. Right? That's the all about me thing. You've got problems. Oh, no. No. Let me tell you about my problems. Because mine are bigger, better, faster, and stronger than yours, right? We get into this weird thing here. I got into that with my sister recently. I said, "Oh, I think I'm getting a little bit of a sinus infection." "You don't know what sinus infections are," she said to me. "I've had one for 5 weeks and I've taken everything." I'm like, all right. So what is caregiving? I want you to really make sure you claim that word of what is caregiving and learn how to set boundaries. All right, let's move on to where. Where are you giving care? Where are you folks giving care? In your home? In their home? Okay. Where else? Okay. Where else? Retirement apartment. Okay. Where else?
Would you count transportation for all of the services that they need as the wear?
So in the car?
Because you're the one who's.
In the car. Nice. Nice. On the phone. Excellent. Yep. Very good. Okay. So, where are you giving care? How many of you have thought about having your folks move in with you? Okay. And how do you make that decision? Very carefully, right? How many of your parents or loved ones have said to you one thing? Just don't put me in a home. Got that? Got that? All right.
My mom made me promise when I was 2 that I wouldn't. You remember that, huh, Rachel?
God,
yes.
Yep. Why is that? What is the home? Yeah. Old people go there to die. Right. And how does the home smell?
Well, I remember my grandfather was like 89 years old, and he said, "I'm not going there. That's where old people are."
Yeah. Don't you love that?
Yeah.
Right. They're 89 and they're saying that's where old people go. I know. How do these places feel? Depressing. Old. Do you know that when I was doing research some 10, 15 years ago, and I was looking at what people thought about old, what adjectives came up, I read a study where they polled 7-year-olds. And they said, what do you think of when you think of old? And they said all those things: sad, depressing, don't want to be there, want to avoid it. What's the alternative to old, by the way? Death. Here's the other thing that we have to learn about. Now, a lot of you in this room know about senior housing. You get it? You get that there's a continuum, right? That your parents could go into a senior living independent, and that could take various forms. They could have some care brought into their homes or your home, that various forms. They could go into something called assisted living, which we talked about has different definitions. When I was first in assisted living, it's way different was then than it is now. Because now what is happening is we're taking assisted living and we're pushing it to the nursing home. Because people would rather be in their own apartments, in their own spaces, right? But nursing homes are very different these days too. They're very different. They're changing. So the home that your parents thought about is not the same as the home. It's not the same kind of care that they're getting today. It's not. Yes?
What's the home called? Because I know 2 older people who are living in this type of home, where there's 5 or 6 or 7 bedrooms, and each person has their own bedroom, but there's an eating dining room and a couple that oversees and prepares the meals, and you can communally sit in the living room. It's like a family.
Right. Do you have that at Cedar Sinai Park?
No, it's called adult foster care.
Yeah, it can be group home is another term. You will also see a number of assisted livings that do that model, called a cottage community. All right?
And we're moving to a household model for nursing.
Yes, and Cedar Sinai is moving to that model when they rebuild their nursing home. It's a very popular model these days, and I've seen a number of places that have gone to that. Yeah.
I was just going to say, when you're talking about negative things, many times that moving is a positive thing. In my family, we had 2 people, one who was a widow, one who had never married, that lived by themselves for a long period of time. And when they went in the home, it was the beginning of a new life. They felt secure, they felt safe, they didn't have to cook for themselves, they were around people all the time. And so I think there's also a very positive as well.
that some people may be anxious in the beginning, but when they realize or they begin to feel that they're fitting in, they realize that it's a very good time of their life, and they can also grow from it.
Right on. That is such a good. So, and you know what? It could be like your driving situation. It could be a difficult transition, because all transitions are difficult. And moving is still one of the highest stress transitions that we go through, right? So it will be difficult. Will there be some uncomfortable times when they first move in? Yep. Will there possibly be medication errors when they first move in, like they didn't get their medication at the same time you would give them their medication, or the same way that you would give their medication? Yes. All those things. When we finally had to put my grandfather in the nursing home towards the end of his life, my aunt, I said to her, who is a Czechoslovakian, and she is a tough bird. She really is. You know, you don't want to mess with Tata. And I said to her, Tata, please, please, please don't chew out the staff. Please don't chew out the staff. I'm going to tell you that there's going to be some mix-ups when he first moves in, because there's going to be aides that maybe didn't get the communication the same way, you know, of how to do it the same way you would. They're going to do things differently. Please don't chew out the staff. I went the next day, she chewed out the staff, right? Because they didn't do it her way, right? We have to remember that professional caregivers, the gift that they give your loved ones when you move or your family decides to move into any type of senior living situation, including a nursing home, the better ones, like a Cedar Sinai Park, they like and enjoy your parents, and they don't have the family baggage. Their buttons aren't pushed like yours are. That's the gift. So I watch my 50-year-old sister in this assisted living in Northfield. And she'll say to me sometimes, "You sure I couldn't live independently?" And one of my fears with my sister is isolation. And I'll say to her, "Do you see all this activity buzzing around your area in assisted living? You know, you love the staff, they love you. If you move down to that apartment, that activity goes away." "Ah," she says, "so I'm better here. For now." For now. So that's the where in senior. And if you are going to take your parents or loved ones in, it's really to consider how are you going to keep those boundaries up? What is the home care company that you're going to work with? And again, remember when I said who's on your team? If you don't know what a home care company is or how they work, get in touch with Trish first. All right? Call up Cedar Sinai Park folks and just say, "All right, Kari said I could call you." Because I have no idea what home care company I should use. Or what is adult day service anyway? And what the heck is respite care? Respite care. What is respite care? Do you know what respite care is? A break for you. That's exactly what it is. Exactly. Respite care. Take advantage of these pieces that are already in place that because we don't call ourselves caregivers, we don't always look for. But you have to have respite. So that's the where. When are you fitting caregiving into your schedules, by the way? In between your job. In between your pets. In between your kids. This goes back, swings right back around to that boundary thing. Because the other thing I said that you folks said to me when you walked in here, some of you, that you're very tired.
What it is you take a jar and you fill it with pebbles or stones. And the time that you care for your mother, father, whomever, is when you pour the sand in and all the places it fills in. You already have a full jar, but the sand fills the rest. That's what it is.
So how long are you going to last like that? And what is going to happen to your loved ones when you run out of steam? Who is going to help them then? call once, and I compared caregiving in that whole journey to the grieving process. Because you do, in a sense, grieve your life before you took this role on. And you go through the anger and the guilt and the bargaining, all those stages. But you absolutely must take care of yourself. So, when you give up going to the movies with your girlfriends because you absolutely can't, what's mom and dad going to do without me? As soon as you start saying those, you get those little triggers in your head. What are they going to do without me? Who's going to take care of them? That's when you know you're doing too much and you've got to get out. When you start talking to yourself, but I have to, I'm the only one, that's your trigger message that says, oh, I've got to take care of myself. So now let's see how we can arrange that. I hate to say it, but you're not the only ones that can take care of your loved ones. You're just not. You're not. I know you think you are. Very difficult for me sometimes to leave my sister. But what I do, because she's in a beautiful care community, and part of Huntington's, there's a real heavy depression component on her piece, and I do get nervous sometimes. And her Huntington's neurologist will frequently ask her, how are you doing on suicide? Because the greatest cause of death with Huntington's is suicide. And she's still in that window a little bit. So I have the direct line to the evening nurses, because that's when she gets really down, a little bit of sundowner there, okay? And I call them. So instead of me driving over to see her, because I could, but instead of me doing that, I call the night aides, who she calls the dollies, and I say, just want to let you know, this is how Anna's calling me, and I'd rather have her call you. So because she's not, would you go into her room and check on her? And they do. Do they do it as good as I do? Yes! Probably better. They don't have the same buy-in. Is Anne okay? Yes. Yes. See, this whole caregiving thing, a lot of it is us getting over ourselves. You get that? We're not the only ones. Get over yourself. Yes, you love them, but caregiving is a bear of a journey if you're doing it because you feel you have to. Because you're taking that into that relationship. And they feel it energetically because you're putting it out there. You're putting it out there. I hate being here. I hate being here. I should be doing other things, but no, instead I'm here. Because I'm the only one. Because my siblings are a bunch of boobs. So it's me. You better be giving me all your money when you die. And not to that brother of mine. You know, you're carrying all that stuff in. Right? That you have to talk about in support groups. And that's the what of caregiving as well. Support groups, yes.
I just want to bring up another point. Isn't it also, when you're in a situation like this, that you're actually also doing some enabling?
Yes.
And if you do enabling, you're therefore taking away some of the independences that your parents or your patient or whoever has.
Yep.
Because they know that they don't really have to utilize that because they have a telephone.
That's right.
Or whatever.
That's a really good point. Beautiful point. My sister is in therapy, and she'll come by, and sometimes I feel like, I have to give her all the answers because I know everything. And when I get over myself, I'll say to her, what did you learn in therapy today? And she'll say, well, I learned this tool and that tool. I said, well, that sounds like a good one to use. What do you think? Right? Why do you care? But you have to.
know this at the time, but after my father passed away, I realized that I had modeled it for my children about their own life. So, you know, if you want to call it, it wasn't selfish because I know that I didn't think it at the time, but it can't hurt.
We love them. What's that? Human nature.
Well, I just feel that in the case of my father, you know, he invested so much in me. I feel that I want to do for him at a time when he can't do much for himself.
Okay. Why do some of your siblings or other people not care then? Because they know you'll do it. Different conscious level? Conscious level? It's too hard for them. Of course it is.
Different strengths.
Different strengths. Different part of the country. Okay. Under this category, we have to go back to that roles, so the different roles that you take on. And you know what? I think it's okay that we ask our siblings or other people for help in my family. So again, going back to when my mother was dying, we're standing there and my sister looked at me right away and said, "You're going to call the brothers, right?" I said, "Of course I'll call the brothers. They live on the East Coast, right?" So I went to call the brothers and I said, "Here's the diagnosis for Mom." "Okay," Steve said. "All right." I said, "I'll talk to you later." "Right." Call Dave. "All right." "Do you think I can't afford to come home?" "Right. Okay. That's fine. I'll call you later." I get off the phone and Ann was like, "They're coming, aren't they? They're on their way, right?" I said, "No. No. They're the brothers." So when we think about why we do what we do, we have to take into consideration why other people don't do what they do. And sometimes they're not at an emotional place where they can. I'm not saying that's right, but it's reality. Or there's a relationship issue that they had with that parent or loved one, then I'm sorry they haven't gotten over, they haven't mended. They can't. So we can be upset about it, but we also can't dwell on that.
So Kari, one phenomenon I've experienced in my own family and with my wife's family when we were caregivers, and that I see a fair amount of time at work, is the out-of-town sibling from far away who's not around a lot, and then they sort of come swooping in and give a bunch of orders and tell everybody how they're doing everything wrong and create a lot of tumult and then go away. So what advice do you have about that? Because I'm sure everybody...
Classic. That is a classic example. Why are they doing that?
They feel guilty.
Of course they are. Why else? They want to do something. They want to do something. And moving furniture and changing medications, that's doing something. They can't just come and be. They got to do something. Because we are a doing society. So, let's deal with the out-of-town people just for a moment, okay? Because they do. They love to swoop in and change things around. My favorite is when you have a parent with Alzheimer's disease and they come and move everything around the living room. So now Mom's tripping. Well, that wasn't beneficial, but this is much better for her. But yeah, it's not beneficial. But I had to do something. All right. Be versus do. That's one thing that we have to look at, and I'll come back to that. But one of the things that, when we talked about the roles, we need to include our out-of-town relatives and siblings. And it's a matter of asking Brother Steve, who lives far away, how are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about Mom? What do you think you could contribute? And if you don't know, think of all the tasks that you have to do. Like the insurance company needs to be called. I don't have to do that. Steve can do that. Or, in my sister's case, not many people want to deal with the husband right now. So we gave that to Steve. Right? So he can do that. So if her husband texts me and says, "How's Ann? I still care." You know what? That's my boundary. I say, you know what? I don't have to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. I don't have to. All I do is ring my brother up and say, "Hey, got a text from Jeff. and I email them or forward the text to them, and Steve takes care of it.
What about when your loved ones you're taking care of, someone comes to see them from out of town, and all of a sudden that person has been elevated, and you who are in the trenches every day.
It's the prodigal son thing, and you have to roll with it, okay? But that again is letting your ego get in the way. It's okay. For that moment, let them celebrate those out-of-town people. You have to get from your other support people how good you are and what you're doing. And sometimes you need to ask people to give that to you, okay? That's another thing the out-of-town people can do. You need to also, one of the first things that we did and I do with families is you have that team meeting so that you pull out what are the things that you can do from afar. And maybe another thing that those faraway people can do that would mean a huge amount to you, besides sending you money, is to send you support cards. Not report cards. You don't want the report cards from them. You want the support cards. That's what you want from them.
This is a past issue now, but in the initial months after my dad was diagnosed with vascular dementia, getting my siblings on board, they were in complete denial that this was happening. You can call it that. You know, I was the one going to every, doctor's appointment with geriatric, physician, but it was
nothing, right?
But I'm going to call it this. You can call it, and it was, so it was like a level of denial and time till everybody came to the consensus.
That's a beautiful point. Because we can tell our siblings what's going on with mom and dad, but sometimes they'll say too, well, that's just aging. That's just what aging is about. And you could use it. Well, you can call it that, but this is what I'm finding out. The trick here is to not let it get to you. They're not doing this because they want to bug you, even though that's what you may think. They're doing it because they don't understand. It's too hard. They've got issues of their own, or in my brother's case, they're just meditating about it. And it takes time for the answers to come. So, but a key thing with the out-of-town people is also to keep them informed. And so, like with Alzheimer's, rearranging the furniture, you can find, if you go to the Alzheimer's website, alzheimers.org website, you can get some tips and just send them. But don't say, this is what you need to do, but this is what I found out. This is what I found is helpful. Take it or leave it, but this is what I found out. But keep them informed. Anyone else have ideas on out of town?
One thing that worked with my sisters was arranging, they would come visit. We would arrange a care conference.
Yes.
And I would sit in the back seat and let the
Exactly.
care providers answer any questions they had and so on. And they would feel like they had a lot of input and could participate.
That's right.
And allowed them to do some of the learning and for it not to be about, what do you know? You're the
Right.
guy, you don't know.
Right. Yeah, because the main character is always, the main caregiver, yeah, that too, caregiver. They're always seen as the know-it-all too. So there's some slight resentment, right? Yeah.
I am the out-of-town person.
Oh, you're the nasty one. Okay, no.
But I feel completely, there's just two of us, my sister and myself, and unofficially, somehow, out of attrition or I don't know what, we each have our duties, and we report to each other, and we text, email, call, and keep each other informed, and ask each other's opinion. And so when you talk about a caregiver meeting, I would never need that because I already know. And one thing we found to be helpful, by the way, my mother has caregivers 24/7 in her home, is when the nighttime person goes off shift approximately 7 a.m., they text us in the morning. Her night was this, blood pressure, a few key things. So every morning we get a text. Do we have to respond to it?
No.
But we have the information.
Yeah. In the olden days, what we would do is we would tell people to just leave a spiral notebook, and you can still do that.
Yeah.
So you can just write it out. There are some programs coming out, like a caring bridge type of thing. There's a care together model. There are a couple other models that are coming out to help family caregivers better communicate with each other. You got to remember, though, even though we're all dealing with this this room really ought to be packed with people. But we're either avoiding it, hiding it, not dealing with it, or we don't really know what we're getting into, what we've gotten into.
Well, each person, I think, comes to a problem in their own space, in their own way, particularly siblings.
Yes.
And particularly in a parent, it's very difficult because they may see one thing in their mind and yet do something else in their hearts or their memories. And it's very difficult when they clash.
Very difficult.
And so, in other words, not everybody is on the same plane. And out of that plane, there has to be one person at least to surface that says, I am the one that's responsible.
That's right. That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, it's really beautiful. My brother Steve did write me email that's in my book, and I just love it. It's one of those ones that I just read and treasure. And it says, I can feel you are under new and different stressors than you were before, he wrote. And I see why. Not that I didn't know. You have always been the one that we can all count on in the family. It's pretty easy for the rest of us to take it for granted that you are going to handle things. You always have. But it must be tiring. You have your life to take care of and your dreams you want to achieve. I am thinking about all this and will try to send you something helpful later. The try part refers to me being helpful. Love, Steve.
Keeper.
You know, it's just, that to me means so much. But everything that I hear too comes back to that why do we care piece. And do we feel like we owe these people care, or are we doing it because we love them? Because we're the ones. We're the ones that have been called to do it. But if we are the ones that have been called to do it, if we are the ones stepping up, we have to do it. In order to do it with more joy, we can't then be angry and frustrated at all the other ones who aren't at that point. We can't. If we want to do it with love. But if you, and I shouldn't say we can't, because those feelings will be there, but it's finding people that you can vent to who understand you. One of the things that I'm excited about developing is I'm developing a peer-to-peer caregiver support group. And that model will be out there soon so that people can get together and support each other. I want to just end with, how do you care? We're not trained. You have to remember that. You're not trained. Right? So when you're hard on yourself, you're not trained. In my book, I give a lot of examples of how to give care. And a lot of it has to do with this being versus doing. But if you want to do some things, they're in here too. Like, how do you use music to shift a mood? And you can use it for yourself too. How do you use mental fitness? And if you want to know what products I use, please go to my website, email me, all the information is in there. How can you do this caregiving journey with more joy? And a lot of it has to do with putting yourself on the gentle cycle. You're not trained to do this, and to be versus always having to do. Any further thoughts or questions from you? Yes. Yes.
My father, before he had a feeding tube, he ate chocolate cake every night for dinner. And my mother would tell him to cut it out because it wasn't good for him. And I would say, Mom, he's not going to do it when he's 91. When is he supposed to have chocolate cake every night for dinner? But what I would do, and this is in Los Angeles, and I was the daughter. My sister lives near LA, and everybody was surprised to find out that I was not the LA daughter. So, yeah. Anyway, I would bake chocolate cake for him. Sometimes I would bake it at 11 o'clock at night because that was the time I did it. And I just did it. You know, I don't know. I did it because I wanted. If he's going to have chocolate cake, he's going to have good chocolate cake. Well, now my father's gone. But you know what I didn't expect is, and this is just for for anybody, whatever you might do for your loved one. It is now a gift to me because my father is gone, and I know that I made him chocolate cake, and it was just his birthday. He would have been 93, and I made him chocolate cake. So whatever you do,
Make chocolate
it might
cake.
feel tedious and it might feel difficult, but when they're gone, it's a gift to you.
I'd just like to make a comment. Earlier on tonight, you started talking about how we have to try and be okay with the whole aging thing ourselves in order to do that, what we're talking about here tonight. And one thing I've learned over the years, taking care of people, is that if I'm going to pay any kind of attention at all to aging and the issues that arise because of it, it's very important for me to consider that that's the one thing, kind of the one area that I have no experience in. I'm not 70, 89 years old, and I won't know until I get there. And when I get there, I might not even know. So it's extremely important that while it is right and good to work at being okay with what's happening to your loved ones or anyone you're taking care of, we have to remember that most of us are not aging in later life like they are with those issues. So it's impossible for us to really know. All we can try to do is try and understand.
Would you please join me in thanking Kari? I want to just say a couple of words. But first of all, thank you. That was enlightening and delightful. What a gift you're giving, not only here, but clearly to this world of people who need you. So thank you so much. I want you to know that there are resources available to you right here in Stumptown. Okay? Cedar Sinai Park is here for you. I'm delighted that my colleague David Malka from Jewish Family and Child Service is here. There's not a better family therapist in the city than this gentleman, and he is. I know that because he helped my family, but I also know it because of how many people I've seen him help. There are resources in our community, Sinai Family Home Services as well. Please come to us if we can be of help to you. The most important thing we can do is be there with you on your path, because the reality is most of us get to walk on that path too. There are no exemptions, but we're very happy to share with you and be there with you, whether you get services from us or not, that we are there for you. On our website, there is the Elders Family Learning Initiative, which is a blog that people contribute to, and you can contribute to as well, because everybody's got stories to tell. That chocolate cake story is precious. It is so real and so important. So please participate in the blog and participate with each other electronically. Also, a number of the agencies in our community are coming together to try and develop a more comprehensive approach to helping people to stay at home for as long as they possibly can. Or the approach is sort of wrap-around services. How can we create services in the community that will help caregivers and elders and people struggling with disabilities to get the care that they need. We are going to be holding focus groups at the end of this month and at the beginning of June. If you're interested in being in a focus group, come up here and write your name and contact information, and we'll be very happy to contact you and to include you, because you will have, those of you who do that will help us to give some shape to whatever it is that we do as a community to try and make a difference. And I think the most important thing that I derive from this is how important it is for us to talk with each other, that all of us have wisdom and experience and those stories that we can tell each other that can make a great deal of difference and Kari, it's wonderful